to the first episode of Beyond Dogma, Dialogues on Islam and Religious Diversity. I'm Irtika Cheryl, your host, and over the coming weeks, we'll embark on a series of deep, honest conversations about faith, truth, and spiritual meaning. Our guest and guide for this journey is Dr. Farhad Shafti. Dr. Shafti's background is uniquely interdisciplinary. He studied in the seminary tradition before transitioning into formal academia, where he earned his PhD in Islamic Studies from the University of Edinburgh. He also holds a PhD in Management Science at the University of Strathclyde, UK. He is the author and founder of exploringislam.com, as well as author of upcoming book, The Farahi School and Reformist Islam, slated to be released in early 2026. In short, Dr. Shafti is not someone who lived purely in theology or purely in academia. He's bridged both worlds, always asking how faith and reason can mutually inform one another. In Beyond Dogma, we aim to delve into questions that many believe are off limits, but which in fact lie at the heart of faith. We'll explore these major themes: the concept of spirituality and salvation, what it really means to seek the divine, how salvation is understood beyond ritual, the nature of the Quran, what kind of book it is, how its message can be understood across contexts, truth, revelation, and religious pluralism. Is there room for multiple sincere faiths? How does revelation speak across religions? Sharia law and ethics, how divine principles relate to human systems and how we approach change. Faith in modern life, how can one live as a believer in a pluralistic, secular, and scientifically minded world without feeling torn? Each episode will combine respect, curiosity, and challenge, because to go beyond dogma means to question even what we hold sacred and to rebuild it from conviction, not fear. Dr. Shakti, thank you for joining me. To begin, I'd like to ask, in your view, what is the urgent need for a series like this in our times? What do you sense is being lost when people think faith must be rigid or dogmatic? Also, how do you hope the series will shift not just minds, but hearts, turning intellectual reflection into spiritual renewal?
Thank you very much, Irtiqa. Salam alaikum. Salam to you and salam to the viewers. And thank you very much for hosting this and for giving me this opportunity. And thank you for the introduction. I hope I deserve it. Let me start with the second question that you asked me, which is how I hope these series may change the mind. Was that the question? Yeah. Let me start with that. I really do not think that my motivation for series of talk like this is to try to change people's mind. It's not at all like that. In fact, it has been many years since I have moved away from this urge to convince others about my understanding or our understanding. So my answer to your second question is that I'm not aiming to change anybody's thinking. My own thinking has been changed continuously during the last many years. So who am I who could claim that he wants to change somebody else's thinking? My objective, and I hope our objective of this series, is actually much simpler than that. I have an understanding about religion and Islam. I'm interested in it. I just like to share it with others, and maybe some other people may find it interesting. And also through the hopefully discussions that we are going to have, and hopefully from the comments and feedback that we may receive from audience, I may have opportunities to revise my understanding and to just move on with this continuous urge for finding the truth and understanding the truth. So it's as simple as that. as far as I'm concerned, well, number one, I'm not at all interested to convince anybody about our views. All that I'm concerned about is that if I can make it clear what is my understanding, and if I'm fortunate enough to hear the understanding of others, if I can also clearly understand that if that happens, I consider all these talks to be successful ones. Whether somebody finds it interesting or convincing, that's something that does not really matter.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of overall, so based on my answer to your second question, you can then guess that my answer to your first question will be slightly more humble. In no way I can argue that the world or Muslims are in need of these series like that. No, not at all. I mean, the world is moving on, and Muslims are moving on, and scholars of Islam are doing great, and nobody needs something like this urgently. But what I can say is that when you look at the history of scholarship of religion, and by religion here I mean any religion, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, any religion, you will find that in those periods of time when their scholars stopped thinking beyond what was considered to be unthinkable, uh, the religious progression and the benefit that people could get from that religion started to decline. And as soon as they started thinking about it, thinking whether what they consider to be unthinkable is really unthinkable, whether they can actually think about it, and whether they can look at the religious texts, look at the classic understanding, and see whether it is possible to derive something more relevant to the time from it, or whether there might be something that some people have got it wrong and maybe we can revise that understanding. As soon as they did that, you can see progress in understanding the religion, progress in people who want to follow that religion. So I think not just these series of talks, but I think any attempt to look at religion and the scholarship that we have there, and try to assess it, revise it, see what other readings we can have from the text. These will be beneficial, and these are very important.
Right. I will go on to elaborate that my second question was not simply about minds, but it was also about, how we can go beyond that, and if it is somebody's aim to change people's hearts as well, because that tends to be usually more long-lasting than simply a change of mind. But as you've stated, that that's not really the aim of this series. However, I will say that, I think in today's time, what I personally see is that I personally have come across very few scholars who are ready to revise their views based on new information that they come across. And I think that is something that does make its way into people's hearts because they see a certain sincerity and integrity. So I really feel that, if people are bound to learn new things. I guess it's my personal belief that it usually affects the heart first. So yeah, let's take it from there. Um, but one thing I think I'll just quickly like to mention, and maybe you'll agree with it or not. Do you think that in the beginning of like Islamic discourse, like when we hear about all these classical scholars, um, I do think that they were much more ready in a way to change their views, when encountered with new knowledge. But do you think in sort of like the contemporary approaches that we have now towards Islamic discourse, there's a lot more rigidity overall?
Yeah, I think you have a point there. You're absolutely right. I mean, when you read the kind of debates and scholarly dialogues and exchange of views between not only just between Muslim scholars, but between Muslim scholars and other followers of other religions, or even atheists, you do see a certain degree of tolerance that you don't see it much today. You read, for instance, that this atheist comes and goes to the central mosque on Friday and sits down there and starts arguing in favor of atheism. And Muslims are gathering around him, listening to him. And they encourage one of their scholars to sit down and debate with him. And that scholar sits down and debates with the atheist. And as it happened, the atheist was very good in reasoning. So the scholar actually apparently loses the debate. He couldn't answer this atheist anymore. And the atheist just leaves the mosque in peace. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You read about the many sessions where the Caliph, for instance, invites scholars of different religions or scholars in Islam from different backgrounds and encourage them to just debate, just discuss things, and let's see how you get on with it. I don't think you see that degree of tolerance among many of our Muslim societies. There are very good examples, of course, that are as good as those signs or even better. But generally speaking, I agree with you that, I miss those times in a way, yes.
Right. So moving on, one of your contributions has been to insist that reason and revelation are not enemies, but partners. Given your training in engineering, management science, and theology, how do you see that partnership unfold in practice? And is there a risk that over intellectualizing religion, one might lose its spiritual essence?
Yeah. So first of all, when we talk about reason, I do appreciate and understand that you related to my background in engineering and management science. But bear in mind that even pure religious studies is based on reason. It's not like just based on memorizing things. Islamic studies, and in fact any theological studies, is also based on reason. So reason comes from all these disciplines. In fact, as soon as you call something as a discipline, then there is a reasoning there. Otherwise, you won't call it a discipline. And we have the discipline of theology, discipline of Islamic studies. So all of these are based on reason. In terms of any contradiction between reason and revelation, or reason and text and things like that, I think there are certain things that we can say, and I would like to say three things here. Number one is that, to start with, you always believe in religion based on a reason. There is no way that you would believe in religion unless you have a reason for it. Now, sometimes this reasoning can be very, very, very basic and plain. Like, why are you Muslim? Well, I was born in a Muslim family, so I'm a Muslim. Okay, it may not be the best reason, but it is still a reason. You unintentionally following that on that reason that is subconsciously going on in the system of your thinking. So that's the simplest reason. Let's go back to the framework of Islam, for instance. When the Quran reasons with the direct addresses, it doesn't say that, well, you have to believe in this, because if you don't believe in it, I will punish you. And there's no reasoning behind it. It brings reasons for you. It says, well, see if you can produce something like this Quran, if you think that the Prophet has made it up himself. You are saying that this Quran has been taught to him by somebody else. The person that you have in mind is not even Arab. How can you say something like this? You say there's more than one God, but if there is more than one God, then such and such things will happen in the universe. Talking more with our Muslim audience, and I hope that we have more any kind of audience, but talking more here with our Muslim audience, I don't think I've seen. I'm interested in reading scriptures and books that are holy and are considered holy. I don't think I have yet seen a book that refers to thinking and importance of thinking and reasoning as much as the Quran is doing it. So uh, yeah, so my second point would be that the Quran is actually asking us and direct us to reason. So I said I'm going to say 3 points in answering your question. The first was that there's no way but reasoning. I mean, even the person who says, think about it this way, Ertala, the person who says, reasoning is not good, we should just follow what we find in Revelation without reasoning, yeah, and say why. As soon as he explains it, that's reasoning. So even an attempt to say reasoning is not good needs reasoning. So in a way, it contradicts itself. So that is the first point. The second point is that the Quran asks us to reason. The Quran asks us to think. The third point, which is very important, is that we should not confuse two things. It is one thing to say something is irrational, and it's another thing to say something is beyond our understanding. These are two different things. It is completely reasonable to say there are things that we may not fully understand. That doesn't mean that it is unreasonable. It is still reasonable, but it is beyond our understanding. So when we say reason, we should not think that, oh, so if you cannot, for instance, the essence of God, if you cannot put a formula and explain that technically, then you are saying it is unreasonable. You are saying the thinking about God is unreasonable. No, it is absolutely fine by using reasoning to argue that understanding the essence of that ultimate truth that we call it God is beyond our reason. That itself
Right.
is reasonable.
So basically, I think how I'd like to go forward with further questioning that is asking if you believe there's a dichotomy that exists between reason and feeling. Do you think feeling is a kind of reason to believe in God or a spiritual truth? Because many Muslims, as well as non-Muslims, they relate stories of incidents in their lives that they view as almost mystical, and I think more than any other reason, it's like those incidents are the cornerstone of their faith. Because with several different reasons, new things keep on emerging, and sometimes it turns into a debate that can go on and on. But with such incidents, people faiths get pretty strong. So I just like to very simply ask if you think that feeling is also a kind of reason to believe in a universal truth.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends how we define the word reason. I guess there is a way to define the word reason so that it could include feeling as well, but just to make sure we are not confusing different concepts and terminologies, I think the way that I would like to think about it is this, that we are bound to accept something because of a proof. In Arabic, they call it hujjah. It's also a Quranic word, hujjah. It can be translated as proof, or let's say something that convinces you about something so that you won't have any excuses not to accept it, not to believe in it. Let me put it this way. I say, as human beings, we should and we can only accept something if we have a proof for it. Reasoning would be one way of having a proof. The other way, of course, as you said, will be feelings. A good feeling, a feeling that you can rely on it. For instance, this glass of water, I'm feeling that it is cold. I don't need much reasoning to convince myself that it is cold. I can feel that it is cold. If I want to be a little bit too complicated here in a footnote, I would say that still a shadow of reasoning is still there. Because as soon as I say I feel it is cold, therefore it is cold. That's a reasoning, yeah. But it's a secondary kind of reasoning. The main reason that the main proof that I have that I trust this is cold is because I'm feeling it is cold. So yes, you're absolutely right, and in particular in something like religion, feelings are very important. What you find within your heart is very important. You're absolutely right. It is no matter how literate you are, no matter how great scholar you are, that real essence of religion that settles in you is actually settles on your heart rather than your mind. Um, um, and I just remembered that I was watching this video. This was one of the professors, a Muslim professor, that was looking at the history of the Quran, and he was saying that when I look at when I am doing all this research, I have two different personalities here. On one hand, I'm looking at these verses and I try to trace them back historically and whether there is any intertextual relationship between this text and some other texts and whether in ancient writings we can find something like this. That is my reason going on. On the other hand, when I read that verse, my heart is melting due to the beauty of that verse and the power that that verse has on me. So yeah, I mean, definitely, religion touches the heart uh, much more than touching the mind. But what is important, Ertera, I think that what is important is that because just as reasoning can be wrong, feeling in your heart can also be wrong. Yeah. I mean, how many times we thought that, oh, I have a feeling about this, and then we found that the feeling was wrong. I mean, there was nothing there, basically, yeah?
Yeah.
So I think it is absolutely understandable and, in fact, desirable and very natural that we allow our heart to be open to religious aspects and to accept something. However, when it comes to the point that we find that what we have found in our heart seems to be against rationality, against reason, not beyond that, but against
Hmm.
it, going back to what I
Hmm.
said earlier. As soon as we find it is against it, then I think we need to be very cautious and we need to
Right.
revise what we are feeling. Think about it.
Hmm.
One of the main objection of the Quran was for the polytheists at the time of revelation of the Quran in Arabia, in particular in Mecca. Okay,
Hmm.
but these polytheists did not become polytheists by reason. Many of them became polytheists by heart. I mean, the same way that you and I became Muslim because we were born in a Muslim family, they became polytheists because they were born in a polytheist family. Mushrik, as we said in Arabic and in the Quran, right? Um, then the Quran starts reasoning with them, that this view that you have, it has these problems, it is a mistake, makes reasoning for them. That's the point that I'm talking about. That, yeah, absolutely, heart is very important, but we need to be alert and aware that if we find that something is against rationality in our heart, we need to do something about it.
Right. But I think I was just getting to that. Like, if you go in the past and you think about the time of prophethood, you see that there was just so much going on that it was very difficult at that time to sort of just keep yourself at bay from all the developments that were happening. However, in today's time, there are so many different kinds of people, both Muslims, non-Muslims, those belonging to other traditions that, perhaps they have like a basic understanding, or not even an understanding, I would say just a basic knowledge. They know that, okay, this is the faith that our family belongs to, but they don't really take a deep dive into it. They don't feel the need to really study it. I think maybe in the same way as there are so many academic disciplines and we don't sort of take a deep dive in all of them, and we only choose the ones that interest us. So there are people that are simply I guess I don't know if lazy is the right word for them, but they just want to keep like a distance from all of that. Maybe there's a bit of influence of just pop culture and a more secular society. But what about those people that just don't take or feel the need to take a deep dive into this inquiry? They aren't, with your writings, I think what the sense that I've gauged is that people that can really be held liable are the ones who ignore truth out of arrogance. But these people, it doesn't seem that they're doing so out of arrogance. It's simply because they don't seem interested in pursuing it or pursuing that inquiry. So, what would you say about these people?
I don't have anything to say. Um, I hold respect for any human being. I think. I think. I mean, many of us are living on a day-to-day basis, day-by-day basis, basically, and we don't have much time to think about things deeply. And I don't think we can, blame people for being like that. But what I would say is that number one, if an opportunity comes to maybe go deeper or learn something, then it's good if people take that opportunity. And of course, by opportunity, I mean something that they find it to be within their capacity in terms of time, in terms of energy they need to put there, and all that, their interests and all that. And also, I would say, in particular for theology, if a person is not too deep about it, and for any reason he's just having a very surface understanding and basic understanding of that religion, I think that is fine, as long as that person is not trying to then impose that understanding on others. It's just like, for instance, if I'm interested to read about physics, right? So I'm not a physician, right? I'm not a physicist. I don't know physics in detail. I had something like maybe 4 or 5 courses on physics in my undergraduate studies. Out of my interest, I may just read some basic things, right? That would be good enough for me. But as soon as I feel that, oh, your understanding of physics is wrong and I need to correct you, that's where I will have responsibility to read a little bit more detail before coming to you and starting to blame you about your understanding of physics.
Right. Well, I think moving forward, let's address the problem of inherited religion. Many people grow up inheriting religious frameworks rather than exploring them. Over time, ritual becomes mechanical, identity becomes unexamined, and beliefs become containers rather than living truths. You've spoken before of religion as a guidance, not control. Could you expand on that? What distortions do you see when religion becomes a tool of control rather than a means of awakening?
Well, I think this is one of those topics that perhaps throughout our questions and answers we will try to go into it in detail. But if I want to briefly answer that, let me just say in this way that I don't think I don't think any religion will be successful by forcing itself to people without first convincing them about its truth and without relying on them to continue that journey. One of the names of Quran, the Muslim holy book, is zikr. Zikr means reminder. Zikr means something that reminds you about something. Something that gives you advice, reminder, advice by reminding you by advising you. What that tells us, what that concept tells us, that there's already something in your heart, there's already something in your mind, something in your brain, and the religion is there to direct you towards that and make you to be able to make the most out of it. I don't want to go through too much technical details here because I know we will touch on that later on, but the Quran, for instance, invests on human beings' rationality. The Quran invests on human being sense of what is right and what is wrong. There are verses of the Quran that explicitly says that. And the book of the Quran as a guideline is something that is just trying to help you to get to that potential and make the most out of it. I'm talking about the Quran, but I would say that any other scripture cannot do more than that. No matter if it says like the Quran that I'm a reminder, I'm just advising, or if it claims something more than that. In practice, it will not be able to do anything more than just asking the person to do the best based on the potential that you have.
Right, right. And maybe this isn't related, but it's beautiful in the sense how different people can interpret different verses in different ways. So it makes so much sense when you explain the zikr concept. In my mind, though, I'd always connected it with how human beings, our minds are sort of designed in a way to keep wandering, throughout the day. It's like we're wandering in different thoughts. And it's the fact that there is a text that's meeting that human need of a wandering mind is also something that has struck out to me over the years. So again, nothing maybe directly related, but just a little snippet I put in there. Going on to just something that you write extensively about, universal Islam versus exclusivism. So, your concept of universal Islam has stirred interest, that Islam is not merely a bounded tradition, but a paradigm of submission to truth wherever it appears. Could you explain how you differentiate that view from religious relativism or syncretism, and how do you respond to critics who say such universality undermines the distinct identity of Islam?
Okay, so again, I think we are going to have some sort of a session just devoted to this topic. So I just go do the outline here. Um, I think you are referring to one of my articles about what is the true meaning of universality of Islam, which I published in my website, Exploring Islam. Um, I basically took benefit of this technical difference between capital word Islam and lowercase word Islam in English. We don't have that in Farsi or in Arabic, so in English it's easy to do that. What I said was that when you look at the Quran, you will find that when the Quran talks about Islam, in my view, in all places, it is not talking about the religion that Prophet Muhammad brought. Uh, it talks about the concept of Islam, which is submission. Uh, in Surah Al-Baqarah, in Surah Al-Imran, the second chapter, the third chapter of the Quran, it talks about Islam. It does say that, oh, the only religion that is acceptable by God is Islam. But then it also refers to the followers of previous prophets. And it says they were Muslims. And it also refers to the whole universe and everything in the universe. And says they all aslama. They're all submitting themselves. So Islam has a conceptual meaning. And that conceptual meaning is to submit yourself to the truth. But I need to be more accurate here, and that needs much more discussion, but I'm going to skip that discussion just now. But I will be more accurate. Islam would be submitting yourself to your understanding of the truth, to your honest understanding of the truth. Because the whole truth we can never understand in this human body that we are. We can never understand what the whole truth is. We don't even know, beyond a solar system exactly what is happening. The scientists are still looking at that, right? How we can claim that we have understanding of that ultimate truth. We have honest understanding. And the concept of Islam is to submit yourself to that honest understanding, right? For the direct addressee of the Quran, that honest understanding was God who is God of Abrahamic religions, creates human being, sends prophets, and then there's a hereafter, and he judges people, and there is heaven and hell. That is an understanding, right? And that's not the only understanding, and that's where we need to discuss a lot later on. So that would be the Islam that in English I would write it with lower I, lower I Islam.
Yeah.
But then, whenever you have this concept, you do need some sort of a framework, some sort of a path to work on it. Let me give you an example. So let's say keeping healthy, right? The concept is to keep healthy physically, right? So we need to keep healthy food, healthy exercises, healthy way of living. That's the concept, okay? But it's not enough to just have the concept in your mind. Okay, Irtiqa, you want to keep healthy, but what are you going to do? Then Irtiqa tells me, well, for instance, there is this application in mobile phone, or there is this gym, or there is this teacher that tell me how to do it. So I have a framework, I have a path that I'm following. Same goes about religion. So Islam with lowercase would be submitting yourself to the truth. And I would consider the followers of all reasonable religions, and we can discuss what I mean by reasonable religions, all of them to have this concept of Islam with lowercase. But then you need to have a path, you need to have a framework, okay? For us Muslims, that path, that framework is the path that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought us. We call it Sharia. It's the word of the Quran. That's the path that we have. That would be the capital Islam, with I capital Islam. And I think both of them are important. Understanding both of them are important, because if we just go with the lowercase Islam, just the concept, that's just a theory. That doesn't take us anywhere. You need to take a path. So that capital Islam for us Muslims would be that path. But then on the other hand, if we do not understand that, hey, there's this concept beyond this, when the Quran talks about Islam, it's not necessarily just this Islam that we have, then the danger of that is that we will have a very exclusivist view of religion and salvation and success, and we think that it's only this path that I'm happen to follow that is the best path, and that itself goes against the verses of the Quran that goes against that exclusivist thinking about the path that we are in, which I'm sure later on in other sessions we can review some of those verses.
Right. So I mostly understood what you said, but I'm still a little inquisitive about the word submission. So when you spoke about Islam with the lowercase I and people of different faiths or traditions, submitting themselves to the truth that they accept or the truth that they find, by that kind of submission, do you mean, does it leave space for those people in that condition to alter their understanding with time? Because I think, how we talked about the importance of reasoning, as new information or new insights, present themselves to us, do you think, because submission, sort of, this word submission implies like complete surrender. So then how would you address, if we speak specifically about those people and they're presented with newer information, and then they change their outlook, would it not be going against submission in the traditional sense of the word?
Very good question. And that's the reason I said, to be more accurate, submission to our understanding of the truth. So as our understanding changes, and it definitely changes, no matter what, as our understanding changes, that submission should also progress with that, So if I have an understanding of truth, let's say 20 years ago, and now 20 years has passed, my understanding of truth due to many other factors have now changed, but I'm still submitting to that previous understanding of the truth, then it cannot be submission, honest submission to my understanding of truth. How is that honest? Because I know that to me it's not truth anymore. How can I honestly still submit to that? The other thing is the very word submission. Uh, I understand what you're saying. Normally, when we hear submitting to something, what comes to mind is that you just follow something uh, with closed eyes. You don't think about it. That's not what I mean by submission here, and I don't think that is all that's what the Quran means by the word Islam. Submission here means that you accept what you understand to be true, which is something that is something actually quite moral and ethical. And that is something that we do in many aspects of our lives. We understand that something is correct, something is true, and we just accept it. We just act according to that understanding. Submission here simply means that you submit yourself to your understanding of the truth, meaning you accept it and you behave according to that understanding. You act according to that understanding. So there is a coherence in your thought, in your language. There's a coherence in your belief, in your thought, in your deeds, in the things that you say. This is the meaning of submission. So it is based on your conviction. It is based on being convinced. It is based on rationality. And it's not just about faith. It also comes to your deeds and everything. And as I said, it is something that applies to every aspect of our life. You are convinced that this subject is a good subject to study, and it's a good thing to learn. So you go and you learn it. You are convinced that this is the good way. This is a good way of keeping healthy. So you just follow that understanding. This is what I mean by submission.
Right. So I think what I'm also getting is that submission might also be synonymous with humility, recognizing that if something makes sense to you, then being humble enough or just having enough humility to submit yourself to it. So do you think that is also one of the correct interpretations one can take from
Yeah,
that?
yeah, sure. I mean, maybe instead of the word humility, I would say humbleness, being humble. And
Mm-hmm.
also add to it honesty. Honesty is very important. That's why I repeat my sentence again. In that general concept of Islam, Islam would mean submitting yourself to your honest understanding of the truth. That honesty is very important. So, um, I guess these videos will go on YouTube at some point, right? You see many debates on YouTube between two sides. Um, and many of them are really very, very good. I mean, no question there. But how many debates you see where, when you listen to the two sides, you get a feeling that, look, this person is a person that if he or she finds that the other side is right, he or
Mm.
she will accept it. You don't get that feeling. It's just about winning and losing, just talking fast and winning the debate. Uh, that honest search for the truth, you don't see it that much. There's a saying from Shafi'i, where he says that something to this effect, Imam Shafi'i, that he says that I'm convinced that what I believe is correct. Now, I'm convinced that my understanding is correct, and I'm totally convinced that my opposition understanding is totally wrong. However, I do not deny that it is possible that my understanding is wrong and their understanding is right. Just imagine if somebody comes with that way of thinking into a debate, then the objective of the debate will not be to if I win it or not. How many claps I get at the end of my reasoning, or what kind of when I look at the comments on YouTube, are they talking about me or the other side? No,
Yeah.
a person can think that I'm here to work with the other guy, trying to find the truth. I think I
Hmm.
found it better than that person, but let's see, maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
That itself can become very educating for the viewers if we
Hmm.
had debates like that.
Certainly, certainly. Uh, so moving on, let's talk a little bit about the role of, again, questioning in faith. You often challenge the idea that faith depends on silence or unquestioning acceptance, but many believers feel that questioning is dangerous or destabilizing. In your view, how can a believer cultivate courageous inquiry without falling into skepticism or arrogance? Where do you draw the line between constructive doubt and destructive doubt?
Um, I think I remember I had this online class with some young people, and there was a tutor there that was supposed to take over from me. And one of the questions that I raised for those young people was that um, why does God want us to worship Him? Why? And then that tutor very nicely was asking me, are we even allowed to ask that question? And my answer was that why not? God has given us this fantastic ability of thinking. God has asked us to think. And one of the first steps of thinking is to ask questions. Any research starts with a question. Any constructive revision of any understanding starts with question. So, no, not at all. I don't see any problem with asking questions. Um, as long as the objective is to try to understand the truth better. So I'm asking the question not because I want to annoy you. I'm asking the question not because I want to just create some doubts and then leave. I'm not asking questions because for some reason I had a very bad experience, let's say, with this kind of with this religion that you have. So I want to revenge by asking so many questions. No, I want to ask questions because genuinely I want to help myself and help others to understand that religion better. And I don't see any problem with that. I always say, I always think that there can never be a bad question. There can only be a bad answer. Any question is a good question. It might be
Mhm.
irrelevant question in some occasions, but it is still a good question.
As we close today, I'd love to ask, what kind of listener do you hope will join us? The skeptic, the devout, the seeker? And what would you say to someone watching this who feels disconnected from religion but is curious, not to pressure them, but to invite them gently back into conversation?
Again, I'm sorry, but I'm going to disappoint you, Ertila, with my answer. I go back to my answer to the second question. Just like in my writings and in my talks in Farsi, um, I really am not in a position to think about the audience in the way that, oh, what can I do to get them to come back, or what kind of audience I'm looking for. Um, Writing or talking itself is something that attracts its own audience. I just hope that what we are discussing today and in other sessions is clear enough so that it attracts right audience, not the audience that may later on find that, oh no, this wasn't for me. It was wasting my time. Uh, I'm not looking for audience, but I hope that if there are any audience, they are the ones who find this interesting, and they're ones who have kind of questions, interests, and concerns as we have. That's all.
Right, right. Well, wonderful, and thank you, Dr. Shafti, for this meaningful opening dialogue. In our next episode, we'll dive into the heart of our journey, the concept of salvation and spirituality. We'll ask, what does salvation mean? What's the criterion for salvation? And what does spirituality truly entail? If you'd like to share your thoughts, questions, or reflections, or propose topics you wish us to explore, you're most welcome to email us at beyonddogmaseries@gmail.com. You'll find that on your screen as well as in the description box, along with other useful links. We'll read through your messages, and some of your contributions may shape upcoming episodes. Thank you all for watching. This has been Beyond Dogma, Dialogues on Islam and Religious Diversity. I'm Irtika Cheryl, and I hope you'll join us next time as we continue this journey beyond doubt, beyond fear, and beyond dogma.
Thank you very
Goodbye.
much. Thank you. Bye.